Hello and welcome! It is Vintage Super League time once again. I'm Randy Bueller, joined by Andreas Peterson. How are things?
Good morning, everyone. I'm great, thank you.
Morning, sure, we'll allow it.
Yeah, I didn't get too much sleep this week. I was just super excited to get to play because now is really where it all gets decided. Who gets to go through, who gets to go home, stuff like that. So
Yeah, and it's a tough pod tonight. You're
Oh,
playing,
yeah.
You're sitting at 2-1. We've got Cyrus Corman Gill, who is 2-1. We've got Seth Manfield, the Hall of Famer, who's 3-0 coming into tonight. And then Andy Marketon, Montolio himself on 2-1. So
Yeah.
a tough pod where everyone is on track to make the playoffs, having put up a 2-1 at least in their first appearance.
Everyone is live. Yeah.
It's not possible for all four of you to get in. Anywhere between, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3. Probably it'll be 2, but it depends how things play out.
Yeah, that's the most realistic scenario, as you mentioned in the chat. If Seth 3-0s and the rest of us splits the games at the 1 and 2, then then it actually just could be one guy going through. But
that is the only scenario where it's a mere one of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2 and 3 seem like the most obvious numbers, and there's no way to get all four of you in. So yeah, tough night. I mean, the pairings are just random. It's not like the previous records went in. I mean, I went on, random.org. I'm rolling up the pairings for this round, and it's this is just how it worked out. I mean, the only thing I did, I will say, I would have split up people if we'd gotten more than 2 people who played together. Like, I wanted to make sure
already played. Yeah, that makes sense.
That was the only thing I was going to re-roll for. Is I put some people had dates they couldn't make it. So first I rolled the people who had a date they couldn't make it. Then it turned out when I rolled it up, there was only one rematch in each of the nights. So that was good enough. I just didn't want to have more than one rematch in a show. It was the only thing I would re-roll for.
For sure, it's a lot more interesting this way that we get to play against new players.
Yeah, and this tonight in particular, it's not just 4 great magicians, right? It's these archetypical decks, just iconic decks, right?
Yeah, the lineup worked out perfectly.
And PO, it's everything you would kind of expect, right? Now, I know you spent a lot of time trying to figure out what you were going to play. Talk me through your process.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun process that I thought I'd share today. So basically, all the way tracking down to last season, we talked a bit about my team back then, Team Snapcaster with Thomas and Michael. We were asked, why don't you ever register Dredge? And we got to talk about that we didn't really enjoy that type of magic compared to, playing broken blue spells and stuff like that. So I thought I wanted to build a little on that narrative. So last Saturday, and that's like 3 days ago, I signed up with a humans deck for the challenge, and I ended up doing well. But I didn't want
top 4, right?
Yes, I went top 4, where I played against Michael actually, and he just beat me with the paradoxical outcome list. But then I thought, I'm not gonna plaster up Twitter with how great this deck is. Just some small stuff like, oh, I top 4'd with humans, and then one guy wrote me, can I see the list? And I just tweeted at him, you have to wait until Tuesday. So I put up
a valiant attempt to throw people off the scent and convince your opponents you were going to play humans.
For sure, because you see, this my own track record combined with my scouting report on the others in the group. Let's take them one by one. We have Andy, who played Dredge last week, so he is not allowed to play it this time. So no one puts him on Dredge. That's the one check mark. Then Seth, I was 100% sure he'd be playing some kind of blue deck. I don't think a newcomer to the format would register Dredge, and I think everyone was on the same page about that. So no one puts him on Dredge either. And then there's one guy, Cyrus left, who used to play some Dredge. He told me that on the last show. So I was somewhat concerned about him pulling a number on us. But then again, I knew, since I asked you, is he allowed to play PO? I don't know if you remember. I asked you at some point, is he allowed to run PO on week 2? And you said yes. So at that point, I was fairly sure that I had put all the others on decks. I would put Andy on either Eldrazi or Shock. And then I would hope that neither of them would bring any Dredge hate, because, I mean, no one's playing Dredge in this pod, right? So that was my thing going in. But turns out Andy was super smart. He's running some Dredge hate today. Seth is not running any, as far as I remember, and Cyrus told me yesterday he almost cut his 3 Tormod script because of the fact that I just mentioned. So I almost hit it on the nail.
Seth may not be running any dedicated Dredge Hate, but what do you do about a Blazing Archon?
Yeah.
His oath creature of choice is Blazing Archon, which says, quote, creatures cannot attack. You're just dead to a Blazing Archon, right? Your 75 has like 2 Chain of Vapors in the sideboard period at the end.
Yeah, I'm not going to bother with those against him. I'm just going to hope that we don't get to a point where he gets to Oath, because I decided to run a Dread Return package with just 2 Dragonlord Colligan to, make it more likely that I get to reanimate that one in particular, but just a split of Ashen Rider and Dragonlord Colligan would actually give me an out in this situation. So,
oh yeah, totally. A lot of people will have an Ashen Rider in their dredge deck. Not everybody, but you figure, maybe half the dredge lists that are out there, maybe it's a third. That one Ashen Rider would be the difference between you winning a game and you losing a game, I think.
Yep.
If
so I prepared for Seth and Cyrus to be on PO, so I wanted the haste creature to be faster game 1.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And then I see a lot of people running the Flamekin Sealot, and I decided to go with the one that I can actually just exile to Icarate and unmask. So yeah, I tried to be smart.
I like Colligan. Colligan also will beat a moat. I mean, that's a thing that can come up every once in a while, right? The fact that it has flying is occasionally relevant. So I can totally get behind Dragonlord Colligan, but yeah, the second one, that makes sense. You were trying to outrace Paradoxical Outcome. Well, you did get the Paradoxical Outcome matchup from Cyrus, so.
Oh yeah, and it can also race against Oath to try and finish out the game before he gets to Oath. So
sure,
I'll try and win that way. But yeah, with just one single slot swap would have made a ton of difference against Seth.
Yeah, against Seth in particular. It sounds like Seth put that Dredge list together, or sorry, his Oath list together himself, which I thought was kind of interesting.
To get some fresh eyes on Vintage from a obviously great player. Obviously the format is different, but we're still playing Magic, so I love that he decided to put it together himself.
And you can see some of those like fresh eye type card choices. He's got multiple Ancient Grudges in the main deck and 3 copies of a Braid. So he's actually kind of set up for the Shops matchup, which he's going to get against Andy. And the thing that I just haven't seen anybody do, but as soon as I saw it on this list, I'm like, it's kind of interesting. His Oath creature setting is, like I said, it's Blazing Archon, Grizzlebrand, and then Niv Mizzet, which is awesome, right? But his sideboard has a second copy of Grizzlebrand and also a second copy of Blazing Archon. So if everyone happens to be right for the matchup, he can double up.
I'm sure he'll be bringing out a fatty or even 2 to bring in another one to make sure he's hitting the correct Oath fatty in the right matchup. I guess that's how his sideboard is constructed.
Yeah, it's just not something I've seen other people do.
Nope, me neither. It's super clever. And I also noticed he has the Gaia's Blessing in the sideboard, meaning that he will probably get down to just 2 creatures. For instance, against me, he'll just have the 2 Archons and then the Gaia's Blessing to, I guess, prevent him from decking.
Sure.
So he'll be running the old school 2 fatties plus Gaia's Blessing package that we used to run back in the day.
Looks like it, yeah. I mean, I certainly ran that package. I ran that package in Standard back in the 90s, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. But it's also pretty obvious that he didn't prepare for Dredge, and then as a result of that, he had more slots to play around with.
That's fair. Yeah, probably we don't see that in a lot of sideboards because people don't think they have room because they've got, at least half a dozen dedicated Dredge cards, which he does not have, like you said. He basically has to get his Oath package on quick enough to get
also, don't sleep on the 2 Needles. Those can be very good against Dredge opponents, especially when the Dredge player is mulliganing.
Fair enough. Now, first...
Needles hate.
Needle counts. I'll buy that. First up, we get a pretty classic matchup for the last couple years of Vintage. Shops against PO.
Oh, yeah.
This matchup has been played a bunch. It is... I mean, some of the individual games tend to be blowout. Like the matchup itself is a blowout in either direction. What's your read on it these days?
I would definitely rather be on the PO side. Back when I started to play PO and it really started to gain popularity, the popularity of Shops was a big reason to play PO, and I still think that holds true. These days, you usually see stuff like null rods and mind break traps or whatever in the sideboard of shops to keep up. But Randy is on. Oh, sorry, not Randy. Andy's on a different. He's got a lot of copies of Ratchet Bomb and Powder Keg, so he's looking for a similar deal with your Moxon card out of those for this matchup. But they're definitely not as good as Null Rod would have been. So I think he's behind from the get-go. But as we all know, the die roll, some good draws out of the Shops deck, and it can compete against any deck.
All right, well, our players are ready. Let's get this party started.